before this summer, I considered Bigfoot may be some kind of leftover primate from days gone by that was intelligent enough to avoid us. I had different theories. But my theory now, and I hate to jump to the end of the story, but after the summer of 2014, I will tell you, and I'll substantiate this with a fill-in, but I'm fully convinced these things aren't nice. And I believe they are interdimensional creatures that are popping into what I refer to as the Baptist box, which is our three-dimensional world that the Lord made to put us in, and for us to stay in there, and for things outside of it to stay out. And some people break the rules. Some people, they channel dead people, they think, but it's just, I'm fully convinced that Bigfoot is something that it's not supposed to be here. It's an unauthorized occurrence into our three-dimensional world.
What is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we're about to fill it up.
All things continually lead back to serpents, dragons, fairies, Nephilim, and fallen angels.
In the distance looms a mystical mountain.
As Mike Heiser used to say, if it's in the Bible and it's weird, it's probably important.
At its peak, a great fire burns, concealing the Prometheus lens.
This development of this knowledge that's being talked about within the mystery schools.
An ancient artifact said to reveal the hidden truth within a deliberately darkened world.
There's a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world.
Join us as we travel and explore the vast unknown. It's a hero's journey with dragons to slay, damsels to save, and innumerable treasures to hoard. Torches high.
The Smithsonian, they caught wind of a giant skeleton, would send their agents out to get it.
But it takes courage to move forward, to move out of the shadows, out of the unreality that we think of as reality.
We are all on the hero's journey.
Mankind has been in contact with and influenced by extraterrestrials.
Leave the sentient mound of bull feathers out of it.
Look at it from a different perspective.
What is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we're about to fill it up. Welcome to the Prometheus Lens podcast, the place where the conversations are always enlightening. I'm your host, Justin, and here we like to use the allegory of the Prometheus lens to take a second look at everything. Well, guys, the hairy man is a fascination of mine, and many of yours also. Luckily, I had a listener by the name of Gabe. Thank you, Gabe, for hooking me up with this gentleman today. But Gabe reached out to me, and he's like, hey, I know a guy in our area, because he's from East Tennessee also, that had an experience with Bigfoot, and it's a wild one, and I know you'll want to hear it. So he hooked me up with this gentleman, and we had a phone conversation, and it didn't take long for me to ask if he'd be willing to come on and share it with everyone else. So I'd like to welcome to the show Chris Kirk. Chris, thank you for coming on and telling your story, buddy.
Oh, I was paid for many years to be on a home shopping network and run my mouth, so I'm pretty easy with this.
Comes natural, huh?
Comes sudden. My dad was a car salesman, so
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and let us get a feel of who you are.
Well, I grew up in East Tennessee and Southwest Virginia. My dad was a Chevrolet dealer, Red Kirk Chevrolet Buick. I grew up on the car lot, and that sort of transformed into a talking head on these home shopping networks. And then after several years of doing home shopping, selling watches and art and pocket knives and the like, I did my own network. I got an uplink truck and some contracts, and we did it ourselves for several years, and I sold it and retired. Right after I retired was when one of the strangest summers of my life happened. I moved here on Douglas Lake about 30 years ago, and I like to night fish instead of day fish because there's too much traffic. A lot of people on this lake now, so I go at night when the traffic's lighter. And during the summer of 2014, it was the most bizarre time of my life that had a specific beginning and a specific ending, which in and of itself is weird. That something like this, that a summer could start like that. But I'll tell you, it began with something that I felt. And that's, Justin and I were talking right before the show about how that's the most bizarre part of the whole summer, was the fact that some of these things occurred and I had knowledge or an unction that they were going to occur before they actually did. And that's really bizarre. And it started that way. I was sitting right here and I said, I want to go to the hot tub. This is April of 2014. I want to go to the hot tub. And I'm like, nah, I'm watching a ball game. I go to the hot tub. So I was just, a voice inside just almost forcing me to go to the hot tub. So I go out this door and I go down to my little hot tub porch and I get in the hot tub and I get all situated to look a specific direction, northwest, and I saw a star go, and I went, that's really strange. And it goes, and it gets large and bright and dim and bright and dim, and it gets real bright and disappears. And I'm thinking, boy, that was really weird. Well, that was simply the beginning of the summer of 2014. And, buddy, it started right there. The next night I went fishing. I was sitting on my favorite point, where there are a few places in this lake where you can catch smallmouth bass. I don't tell people exactly where that is. But at the time, I pulled up there, and something started throwing rocks at me. Actually, I thought it was acorns falling off a tree at first. But chunk, 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 chunk around the bass boat. And I turned the trolling motor and backed off the bank a little further. Bigger rocks this time, bonk, bonk, bonk. And by the time I left there, something about the size of a coffee table came off a 100-foot embankment and landed within inches of my boat. I came home. That was my first night on my favorite fishing hole.
I remember on the phone you said you thought it was kids at first. You were screaming into the woods.
Yeah. I told them. I said, "You little sons of they better stop throwing rocks at me." And then the big one came, and just to let me know, ain't no kid pick up a rock that the rock was as big as a coffee table, and it came from 100-foot, 75 to 100-foot high embankment right beside the shoreline. So that got my attention. But there were several things that summer. I was even on the ham radio. This I didn't tell you, Justin, but just as an interjection here, I was on the ham radio one night during this period, and there was a fellow up in Canada who was a little more soft inside than me. I guess I'm sort of a crusty old nut. But we were talking about Bigfoot. And I said, yeah, I've never seen one, but I know they're out there. And he said, well, how can you be sure they are out there if you've never seen one? And I told him about some of the evidence I had. And he said, oh, you ought to put out bait. Not bait, but he said you should put snacks out for them, get to know them, give them potato chips. And I said, they don't let me do that in Tennessee. It's called baiting. He didn't get it, but the other people did. But at any rate, because I don't see these things as good things.
No, and there's lots of people that do that. They call it gifting to the Sasquatch, and they'll leave presents, and then it'll leave things back for them, and it's a common thing.
Well, if I put potato chips out here over him, I'm going to be up here on the hill. Yeah, they don't let you do that in Tennessee. They got hunting laws against that. But I'm fully convinced, Justin, that after the 2014, before this summer, I considered Bigfoot maybe some kind of leftover primate from days gone by that was intelligent enough to avoid us. And, I had different theories. But my theory now, and I hate to jump to the end of the story, but after the summer of 2014, I will tell you, and I'll substantiate this with a fill-in, but I'm fully convinced these things aren't nice. And I believe they are interdimensional creatures that are popping into what I refer to as the Baptist box, which is our three-dimensional world that the Lord made to put us in, and for us to stay in there, and for things outside of it to stay out. And some people break the rules. Some people, they channel dead people, they think, but it's just, I'm fully convinced that Bigfoot is something that it's not supposed to be here. It's an unauthorized occurrence into our three-dimensional world. But
I love that. That's about the best explanation I've heard. I've heard people beat around the bush, but how you articulated that, I mean,
they're just unauthorized.
Unauthorized entry.
Yeah, you remember when who was the king that went to the witch and said,
Saul.
King Saul said, I want you to bring this old man up, and Samuel came back. First off, Samuel was mad because they woke him up. He was at rest, He was ticked off, and that old witch brought him back. Said, what are y'all doing? She goes, oh crap, I know who everybody is now. If that's Samuel, this has got to be Saul. I'm
a dead woman.
Yeah, she was good. But anyway, I just think that
I always tell people I think of Whoopi Goldberg in that movie. What was it? Ghosts.
Oh yeah,
how she was a fake and a fraud, and then the one time the real one showed up, it scared the hell out of her.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
That was probably her.
Yeah. Well, Whoopi Goldberg's pretty scary to me anyway, but on a different level. But anyway.
Yeah.
But this summer, Justin, was just really strange. And I was glad to finally, and I'll mention this in the course of things, I was finally glad to meet a guy, the only guy on this earth, the odds against this. This is all weirdness, hyper strangeness. Well, let me tell this part first, and then I'll tell you about the hyper strange.
Yeah, because you had several encounters before you met the gentleman.
Oh yeah. So I'm out here. I'm not going to my favorite fishing spot anymore. I did go there a second time, and something bipedal that weighed something like a D9 tractor. Boom, 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 went running around the back of the cove. And this bluff is out on the end of the cove. He went running about, and I could tell it was bipedal. Boom, 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 except it was extremely heavy. And I took off and came home at 60 miles an hour at 3 o'clock in the morning. I had that little bass boat wound up. And I pulled in this cove. I covered about 3 miles, pulled in my cove, and as soon as I pulled in, here's another strangeness. My cove down here in the summer, Justin, is probably 100 decibels with frogs and crickets and hot singers. It's 100. I mean, it's loud down there at night.
Yeah.
When I pulled in and shut the motor off to that bass boat, it went totally silent. I couldn't hear. There was not a sound until a big splash on the other side of the cove, in which my cove's very narrow. It's like 40 feet wide, 50 feet maybe. Something hit the water that was huge, and I turned my flashlight around to look at the water, and there wasn't a ripple in it. I got up the next day. I ran up these steps, and I was 60 years old at the time, and these steps, it's like a cow's face, and it's about 100 steps like this. So running up them was quite the feat for an old man, but I got up the steps, man.
You didn't Joe Biden it and fall 3 times.
No, I didn't fall nary a time, but I got up here, and the next morning when I got up, I looked down there, and there were 6 trees, not 1, not 7, not 4, but 6 trees across the cove that had been pushed down at an angle where the heads of the trees were against my boat motor to prevent me from ever leaving there again, they thought. Well, I had a chainsaw, so I got out, but they made it difficult. Whatever this thing is, it did not like it. I was invading his territory being out there every night at 3 a.m. Like, who the hell do you think you are? So I began to fish closer to home, because I got to tell you, I'm a tough old nut. That's sort of dang spooky.
Yeah.
So
Bigfoot stole your fishing hole.
Yeah, Bigfoot stole my darn fishing hole. It really made me, a little mad on one level, mad at myself for being afraid of it. Because what I started doing, in order to appease my fear, I would just take this with me. And, you know, I wasn't quite as afraid when that was in the rod locker. but I started fishing closer to home. And one night I'm out here right in front of my house on the point. And I hear this scream. And I've listened to Bigfoot audio on YouTube and whatnot. I found one example that was close to what I heard. But this started out as a guttural sound that had to come from mass. It had to be a lot of mass because of the power and the frequency was real low, but it was something along the lines of, and the end of it sounded human, and the beginning of it sounded demonic. And I stood there.
Had to wind up.
Yeah. And I heard this, and I knew this is going to happen 3 times, and I knew the timing of it. So I dropped my rod in the bottom of the boat and just stood there facing the area the sound came from. And sure enough, I said 3, 2, 1. And again, 3, 2, 1. And I'm like, I knew he was going to do it. Even the timing. Once I heard the first one, I didn't have any inclination about the first one. I'm just fishing, sort of oblivious to everything. But the first one went off, and I thought there are going to be 3 of these, and there were indeed 3 of these. So I'll jump ahead 3 years. I'm looking at a Jeep in Jefferson City, Tennessee. And at the time, they were selling these little Jeep Renegades, and they put what they called Easter eggs around the vehicle to, tickle their buyers. And there were little decals of Bigfoot around the back window. That's a popular,
symbol.
Yeah, symbol, whatever. So I'm talking to this kid. I said, I think there's one of those over there in Douglas Lake, lives on Douglas Lake. And this kid said, this is a salesman I'm talking to. He said, really? Can you hold it just a minute, sir? I said, why? He said, I want you to meet my manager. I said, okay. So the salesman kid goes in and gets the manager. The guy comes out. He's about your age, I guess, Justin, but the manager wasn't. He came out and said, yeah, and the kid's all excited. He says, Mr. Kirk, tell my manager what you heard. And I said, I heard a dang Bigfoot scream 3 times at 3 o'clock in the morning. And he said, he whips his phone out, pulls up Google Earth, and he said, sir, can you show me where you were? I put my finger on this side of my point right there. He said, I was on the other side of the point that night. I heard it too. I saw no other people on this lake that night. He and I were the only people on this lake. And by happenstance, by the odds against me meeting the only other, you see, the odds against me meeting, it's just the whole thing, which substantiates my belief that this thing is not a gorilla. It's just like these UFOs. They say, well, they're aliens. Why are aliens people that are abducted frequently? They'll run into a good old Baptist boy somewhere, and the Baptist boy says, listen, if them aliens are getting you, tell them in the name of Jesus to get gone. And some of these people do it, and they get gone. So if you're from, Alpha Centauri, what's Jesus got? Why would you be afraid of him? But if you're from hell, you might have a reason to scat. So that's, that's the way I look at this. This thing, why would an 8 put 6 trees? But anyway, so one night I'm sitting right here, and I had a wife. I divorced her, and then she passed away. She's not here now, but she called me one day just to tell you a little about what kind of person she was, screaming bloody freaking murder. And so I go running over to see what she's talking about. She said, snakes are in the house. Well, she brought a flower pot in that a night crawler got out and crawled out of the flower pot. So I had to weigh what she said with a grain of thought. And having said that, I'll tell you the story. I was sitting here, and she's leaving. This is my bunker. She's leaving, and she takes one step out the door, and I think, she's seen another worm. Ah! And I'm like, oh, God. So she says, come here, quick. And I live in the woods, so we see snakes and bears. I mean, there's stuff here. So I go out and she's looking straight up. And I look straight up, and hovering right above my ham radio tower is a black rectangle, a sheet, thin, blacker than the night, blackest thing I've ever seen. It was like it absorbed all light. It was really bizarre. And I reached right inside the door. There used to be a bookshelf right there inside the door. I knocked the bookshelf over so many times it's not there anymore. But at the time it was there, and I had binoculars on it. And I reached inside, never took my eye off this thing. I reached inside and got the binoculars and looked, and sure enough, it was a perfect rectangle, black rectangle. And when I looked at it, it bent in the middle and went over these huge oak trees here behind my house and went into the lake and disappeared. That was episode number 17 of the summer of 2014.
Are you a hunter, a hiker, prepper, or just someone that enjoys the great outdoors? Well, if you are, you know that good quality gear is hard to come by. Squatch Survival Gear is an American, veteran-owned company, and everything they make is 100% American sourced. And what makes it even more badass is that they have a cryptid-inspired line. Everything from Sasquatch to Mothman. Head on over to squatchsurvivalgear.com and use the code PLP10 for 10% off store-wide.
How it concluded, and I'll sort of jump to the end here, how it concluded, I'm bass fishing very close to my house. I didn't go up there. He did steal my fishing spot. I go there now because their house is there. He had to leave, but for several years, he stole my fishing spot. But I'm fishing close to home. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I've got a smallmouth on. I just pulled her right off the boat ramp. I fish those little shaky heads, throw it up in shallow water, and bounce it down that concrete ramp, and you can use that. That's the best depth finder in the world. Find a boat ramp, and just throw shallow and bump, and notice, it's 10 feet and I got a bite. That's where the fish are, 10 feet. Anywhere you go in the lake, the fish are at 10 feet. That's where the oxygen is. That's where the temperature's right for them. So there's a fishing lesson. But anyway, so I've got a smallmouth on. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. And she's a good one, 5-pound fish. 5-pound smallmouth on light tackle's a lot of fun. So I'm like, woo, and nobody's around to see it. It's sad. I caught this fish at Dale Hollow at 3 o'clock in the morning. And no one was around to see it. It's terrible when you don't have a witness. But anyway, so I've got this big smallmouth on down here at the boat ramp. And something says, look up. That same voice, that force. And it's not nice. It's sort of forceful. Look up. And I'm like, the hell with whatever. I got this. I'm not going to lose this fish. Look up. And I'm like, God dang it. So I tried to hoss her in too fast, pulled the hook out, and she went home. And I looked up, and there was that star. Bright dim. Bright dim. Bright gone. And it ended. That concluded the summer of 2014. But between the first star in the hot tub and the second star bass fishing, there was a lot of weird stuff. And the people that were involved and the ex-wife I spoke of, a lot of strange stuff there. She finally admitted that she heard it once as well several years ago. But I'll tell you, Justin, I've spoken with other people, just because you're always, when something strange like that happens to you, you want some justification. Am I losing my goddamn mind here, or did I just go through a weird summer? Always looking for some kind of justification. And I've heard a lot of people say that they're around water and something throws rocks at them and it subsequently turns into a Bigfoot sighting. Well, I'll tell your audience, I've never seen one, but I know damn good and well that whatever it is evil. Whatever it is does not like me invading its space out here on this lake at that time of, the morning, 3 o'clock. And it has an agenda of some sort, because people around the subject, they respond in different ways, and you can sort of Well, a Baptist is going to see it like I see it, I believe. Most Baptist people will see it like I see it because they're unauthorized. And, when you think you see grandma at the foot of your bed, I'm sorry to tell you.
That ain't grandma.
That ain't grandma, man. Do you see it that way, Justin?
Yeah. Yeah.
Unauthorized visitors into the three-dimensional world.
Yeah. And you can do it, or why else would God warn you not to?
Prohibit.
If it was not something you could do, why would he even waste his time and breath to tell you not to?
Hey, that's a point, man. Yeah, that's a point. Don't go messing around with them dead people. Or he could say, I do not want you to fly to the moon and do circles around the moon and come back. He didn't say that because it's not feasible. But yeah, that's a good point, Justin. That's a good man.
And one thing I was gonna kind of cattily make like a little joke in reference to one of my favorite movies was Hot Tub Time Machine. And these guys get in this hot tub and they're like in the Aspen Mountains, and they're drinking, partying, having a good time. It's like a guy's weekend, and they pass out drunk in the time machine or in the hot tub, and they wake up and they went back to the 80s.
that might be a good thing, man.
Yeah.
I may go to sleep and find tonight.
So a lot of them tried to fix mistakes they made in their life and different things like that, and that's the whole movie, and they ended up coming back. But that hot tub was a time machine, and I was going to joke, be like, well, you might have had a dimensional hot tub machine.
Well, I got to tell you, I read a report about a fella that he was on some lake fishing, and he looked around and said, this is not the cove I just pulled into 5 minutes ago. What the hell's going on? And some strange things happen, and when he gets home, he takes his Humminbird sonar off his dash, which I've got one just like the guy was. That may have actually been, in fact, why I was reading the story, being why I read the story. But he checked his GPS track while he was sort of out of it, and it showed him at like 10,000 feet in the air and all over the lake. And, so I'm telling you, there's something about fishing. Of course, number one, you're alone. Number two, if you're a night fisherman, I wrote a song for Ranger Boat one time, several years ago. We were going to produce a bass boat specifically for night fishing with red lights in the rod lockers when you open them and some considerations for night fishing that, it's not necessary in the daytime. And it talks about some of the things that occur out on the lake that, at that time of day or night, 3 a.m. 3 a.m., Justin.
Yeah, the witching hour.
Yeah, they say it's midnight, but it's really 3 a.m. I'm not a witch, and I haven't read about the occult or of witches and demonology and Satan worshiping and all. But I do remember somewhere when I was a kid reading something about 3 o'clock being the true witching hour, not midnight, But yeah, that summer, man, I got to tell you, it was nice to have that guy on the Jeep lot over there say, yeah, I heard it, because this was getting. I'd tell my wife about it, but she did hear it scream once. But you got to be careful, telling people really bizarre occurrences that you have, because they'll raise one eyebrow and you can call the people with the net and the little white jacket,
Yeah.
But it was so nice to get some confirmation. I think that's anytime you ever hear any show about UFOs or Bigfoot or whatever, I think that's the reason people say, well, he's not lying. He didn't stand to gain any money or anything over it, but he's looking, or she is looking for some verification that they're not nuts. That's what they're looking for. Maybe that's what I'm doing here with you, Justin, except everybody knows I'm a nut.
Yeah. But the thing is just there's so many common themes. The throwing of rocks. And I've even got a friend that he believes the same thing, that he had an encounter. He was out in the woods. He heard grunting and growling and howling and rocks and stuff being thrown at him as he was walking through the woods and took off running. But all of them talk about just the eerie silence before they have an encounter with this thing. It's like all of nature knows something foreign
Yes,
around.
nature knows there's something that don't belong here that's here. That's true. And that'll make your skin crawl, Justin. You know, like I say, I live in the woods, and you know, the bear came up on my front porch last year, and luckily the garbage can was in the building, so he didn't get it, but he did my neighbor's head trash over you. But stuff happens here. I see snakes and hear strange. I will confess something though. I am in some ways. I don't think it's fear, but some things get my attention real quick. And when my little wife came here 20 years ago, 25 years ago now, we were first married. We were in the bed up here in my little. There are 3 houses here, so it's sort of confusing, but we were in the bed and we hear something from hell, a noise from hell. I am a horror movie aficionado, and I've heard some scary Hollywood. Nothing was as scary as what I heard. Even scarier than the Bigfoot howl. And she said, "Oh my God," she's not from here, so she was really freaking out. She's from a big city, and living in the woods was scary enough for her anyway. So, oh my God, I grabbed a gun and a flashlight and went outside, and what it was, Justin, was 2 skunks making love.
Oh, wow.
So you got to be careful when you tell your spouse, "Man, I heard the scariest thing." No, you didn't. You heard Pepe Le Pew getting lucky is what you heard.
Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah, he's getting lucky. That was pretty scary. But what I'm saying, there's a lot of weird stuff that happens if you look up.
Yeah.
You know, the Bible gives you a command. When you sense that it's the latter days, which I do, God tells you to look up. Look up. Don't be walking around looking at your iPhone or your feet. Look, it's time to look up. And if you look up, and I'll tell you, long after the summer of 2014, matter of fact, it was the only strange occurrence that happened since then. I went outside, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and my bunker is below my septic tank, so my toilet has a pump, you know, that pumps it up. Well, the pump,
pump.
Yeah. So the pump was out. It's 3 a.m. And so I go outside to pee. And I'm standing out here in the woods taking a leak, and something says, "Look up." And I thought, here we go again. And I looked up, and a gap in the trees. It's a pretty nice coverage of foliage back here, but there was a gap in it, and I looked in the gap, and there was that star. And I said, it's going to get big and disappear, and it did. And that was a couple of years ago, long after 2014. So,
did you have any happenings or occurrences
of the
close to that
Bigfoot
event?
type? All that ended when they started putting houses in that 100 acres of woods over there. He had a place that was totally, you know, Dandridge is, you know, a lot of people moving in Dandridge and a lot of people moving out here where I am, which is south of Dandridge and around Dandridge. But there was a judge that owned like 250 acres in between that was totally unmolested. It looked like, I mean, I think there was like old growth trees in there. I saw trees in there that were like 3 feet in diameter. Old growth, nothing, nobody had ever lived there except probably the Cherokee. But he had it all to himself. And then the judge died, and his kids built a couple of houses, and then they sold it, and then they built some more houses. That's all over now because that place isn't as desolate as it once was. But, and I was glad, you know, I hate when Yankees move here and they start building houses on places I've stared at cows all my life, and now it's a damn subdivision. I resent that. But I got to tell you, when they put houses up on the judge's property, didn't bother me a bit. I was sort of glad to see it happen. That some bitch need to go on. I'm sorry. He needed to go somewhere else because I don't like him and he didn't like me. You see, that's another indication. I'm a Christian. I'm a Baptist, and I'm a prayer. I pray, and I'm a believer. And the fact that this thing knew that bothers me.
Which I wonder, And when you first told me the story, I just thought maybe it was, a UFO that you might have seen.
It's all tied together, brother.
Yeah, but after hearing your story and putting everything together, I wonder if that night out in that hot tub, you seen a portal open and close, and this Bigfoot came through, and you had all these occurrences and happenings, and then you said you even seen what looked like just a black sheet fly over your house, and it even bent like a blanket around the trees as it went by, and it went into the water, and then everything came back to that point, to that light pulsing and then disappearing.
And recently
going back in.
And recently saw it again. Like something's telling me the portal reopened. I see where you're going with that. That's highly possible. It does look like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I guess I should hang on for some more bizarre occurrences.
Yeah.
I don't like bizarre occurrences. I pray to God, Lord, keep them boogers far away from me. I don't like them. Don't want anything to do with them. But I will tell you, I've seen stuff like this all my life, Justin. And so I do think there are people. Well, I'm a ham radio operator. And if I'm setting on 40 meters on my radio, they could be talking on 20 meters all day long at the top of their lungs. I'll never hear them because I'm not tuned in. I'm just on the wrong frequency. Some people, I believe, are on the right frequency to see stuff. And my father, for example, my mother and I'd talk about boogers and haints and all this stuff, and he'd go, ignore it and it'll go away. He lived his whole life. He said, I don't care if it's real or not. I lived my life totally disassociated with it and ignored, because he might have seen all kind of strange stuff, but he never acknowledged them or the topic. And so, to him, there was nothing paranormal. To him, he decided there is nothing paranormal. Well, my mother...
he just turned it off.
Yeah. But my mother and I were not that way. We didn't miss a damn booger movie. We sort of were tuned to that stuff. She saw stuff all of her life. Her birthday, by the way, was October 31st, my mother's birthday. So, and her grandmother, I understand, was a full-blown booger witch up in Bristol, and my mother was the only grandchild she let come in the house. So I may get this honest. Maybe I do think there are people that are tuned to the right frequency to see it, but I've asked the Lord, I don't want to see it. Take me off the channel, Lord. I just don't want anything to do with it.
No, I'm a firm believer in that some people are just more spiritually sensitive and can see things like that, especially like children and animals. If you notice, children have imaginary friends and talk about all this, crazy stuff that we just strike as, it's just a kid being a kid, active imagination.
Yeah. Or have you ever been petting a cat at 3 o'clock in the morning, the cat goes,
oh yeah, or a dog, and just stare at the
you
corner
look and there ain't nothing there. Yeah, you look and then, what are you looking at? And the cat's like, what are you doing? And it won't take its eyes off. Yeah. So there's a definite frequency to be tuned into, I think, to see that stuff. I've heard years ago they talk about everything operates in a vibrational form, and this is sort of new agey, so I never put a lot of stock in it, but I do know that every piece of mass, every piece of matter has a resonant frequency. Mm-hmm. Everything does. That's how they show those. You can put a tone on a wine glass and and bust it, with a audio. But everything's got a resonant frequency, and every brain operates. Any electroencephalograph operator technician will tell you that every individual's brain has certain frequencies that your brain's actually receiving and transmitting as a radio transmitter.
It's a supercomputer. And your eyes are the receiver.
Yep. Oh, and the Bible says the eyes are the window to the soul. Hey, Justin, you hit on a couple of good ones here, man. Yep.
Well, it's just a law of average. You talk to enough people about subjects like this and swing at the ball, you're going to hit it every once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah, even that broken clock over there, it's right 2 times a day.
That's right.
Right, twice a day. But I got to tell you, Justin, what I fear, like talking to that guy on the ham radio that night, he was like, well, just give them some, they really like marshmallows. I'm like, I ain't going to attract this stuff. That's why God tells you not to pilfer in it, because it, it's like my grandmother said, you stir in doo-doo, your finger will stink. Mm-hmm. And I just don't want any association with them. I don't think it's a good thing. When I see these ghost hunters on TV going out looking for that stuff, I'm like, y'all crazy. Wait till one sticks on you like that movie where that amoeba thing stuck on their face. Wait till one of them things gets on you, and I believe that kind of thing happens. There's a story that some of my home shopping operators used to talk about. They used to be visitors of the Bell Witch Cave down in Middle Tennessee. You heard of that? Yeah. And one of them little girls, while she was in there, picked her up a rock that was a souvenir. And I understand her life went real sideways for 6 or 8 months until she got that rock put back down there in the cave. So, these things, I believe they're just as real as what we vision. The Bible is replete with information telling you about all this real stuff that you can't see. It's actually, these near-death experience people will tell you that it's more real than this.
Yeah.
Have you heard that as well?
Oh, yeah. And there's a guy, I can't remember his name, but I remember his little lecture he gave, and he was into quantum physics and all that stuff, and he was talking about dimensions. And he used an illustration, and it was just beautiful. He held up a piece of paper, and he says, this is a piece of paper. He said, I'm going to draw 2 stick figures. And he drew 2 stick figures and drew one with a little dress on. He said, this is Tom and this is Sally. He said, Tom and Sally live in a 2-dimensional world.
Flatland.
Yeah. He said, Tom can look over at Sally, and all he sees is a straight line. He said, he doesn't see Sally for what she is. He said, only I do. He said, because I'm outside of her dimension. I'm in a 3-dimensional world. He said, even the person inside of their dimension don't see things how they truly are. And he said, so I could even take a ball, he said, and throw it through the paper. He said, all Tom would see is a dot.
And that would get bigger.
Then just vanish out of sight.
Yeah.
And so I was like, that's just a really good illustration. There's stuff in another dimension that's higher frequency than us.
And isn't the Bible a textbook on that?
Mm-hmm. Are you a member of the All Access Pass yet? If not, what are you waiting for? Join the band of brothers and sisters on this hero's journey. The members community page gets you access to the private community, monthly members chats, and guest Q&As. Also gets you 48-hour early access to all episodes for just $5 a month. The All Access Pass gets you all that, plus exclusive members only episodes for just $10 a month. If you enjoy the content, this is your way to ensure I get to keep doing this show. This is your way as a listener to sponsor the show.
Hi, this is Geraldine Kozak of the Crossfiles podcast. I really love and enjoy just his early access to his members-only episodes with his Prometheus Lens podcast, All Access Pass. I get to be able to dive deep into the biblical and supernatural histories and mysteries of what his guests and he talk about. I love it and encourage everybody to join. God bless. Bye.
So head on over to PrometheusLensPodcast.com and sign up. All right, guys, back to the episode. And that's why he warns you not to fool around with that stuff, because it's real. And these beings are higher than us. They're more intelligent than us, and they are not friendly to us.
And they're able to manipulate us and put us in places and doing things that we shouldn't be there and we shouldn't be doing. I believe they are evil influences. And I could go on with another direction with this story, but I won't because it involves personalities and whatnot. But evil is evil, and if you're on the right channel, you can pick it up. I think the Bible refers to it as discernment.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Lord blesses you with a little taste of the frequency, I'll tell you, man, I can meet people, and I tell myself subconsciously that that's a person you don't want to be around. Some people that seem to be just as off the mark as maybe that person, I feel like you need to be around them, tell them about the Lord. But some people I ain't supposed to be around. I get the unction now, and it's a gift, I believe. But
it is.
But I don't want anything to do with this stuff. I'll tell you, I avoid it and pray against it. I don't want this thing. It was a bad time in my life too. I was having a lot of marital problems, and it was really a grunt in my spirit and my body. It was wearing me out. But the angst and the negativity that was flying around. But that thing showed up in the middle of one of the worst summers of my life and harassed the hell out of me and tried to terrify me by pushing trees down against my boat and screaming at me and stuff. It was trying to scare me off the lake. It didn't like me being out there at that time. It just did not. And I don't know if it was operating on someone's bequest. That's what I think. I think somebody sent that thing on me.
Yeah, it's quite possible. I mean, you hear it. It's just one of them things that some people it's by happenstance. They just happen to be at but it's how you look at it. Either the right place at the right time or the wrong place at the wrong time. But they just happen to pop in on it. And then sometimes they're sent.
Well,
a buddy of mine actually interviewed a woman.
Yeah.
And I think she was from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And she had an encounter with one, and the same thing, throwing stuff, and then eventually she would leave gifts for it, just like that gentleman asked you to do, and she was leaving food for it, and they would always take the food. And she said, after several months, it took a while, she said, but eventually it appeared to her, showed itself to her. She said, and it was just this big hairy man, and she said, and I just named him Harry. She said, very original, but started talking with him. And then this thing says that he was an Eliud.
Oh, was it through the mind speak thing, or was it verbally?
Yeah, mind speak. And that she, that basically it was a son of the fallen angel Nephilim bloodline, and that he was seeking redemption. But then he told her that the Bible she was reading was wrong.
Oh,
that it had been manipulated, and that she needed to read the Gnostic texts and all this stuff, and basically developed a friendship with this thing. And my buddy interviewed her 3 or 4 times within the course of a year, and she gave updates. And then he just pretty much told her, he said, I think that this is a demonic entity trying to trick you and pull you away from God and deceive you. And as soon as he did that and told her the truth, she got angry and quit communicating with him.
Well, she had a good spirit then, enough to know that she was being told right.
No. She quit talking to my buddy.
Oh.
She took up for this entity and said this entity was her friend, and he wasn't trying to deceive her, that it's the Christians that's got it all wrong.
Oh, the preacher better go to her house and work on her. She's in trouble. That lady's in trouble, man. She's been deceived. When Jesus, they were all up in Jesus's grill saying, "Hey, tell us when you're coming back. Hey, come on now." And they were just pestering him. And a lot of times they'd ask Jesus a question, and he'd give this etheric, amorphous, parabolic answer that only some people were supposed to figure out, and some people weren't supposed to figure it out. That's why he answered that way. But sometimes he'd answer a question point blank. And he said, when he was giving them instructions, what's it going to be like when you come back? And he said, well, there's going to be this and this, rumors of wars, blah, blah, blah. And he says, but don't be deceived. And then he goes on and tells them a few more things, and he comes back and says, and don't be deceived. And then he tells them a few more things, and he comes back and tells them again, don't be deceived. So evidently that in the latter days is the biggest risk. Because he told them a lot of things once. Told them once. This is going to happen one time, he told them. But this thing about they're going to try to deceive you, man. Y'all listen to me. Don't be deceived. That's the biggest thing he told them. Don't get tricked. And so that lady got tricked.
Yeah, you got to know the word, and you got to be rooted in it, because the enemy will tell you a truth, but it's a partial truth, and it's twisted just enough to lead you straight into the gates of hell unbeknownst to you.
Yep. You know, my sister and I were talking about the gates of hell one night. She's pretty tuned in too. She's more like my mother than my brother. My brother's like my dad, you know, on all of it. You know, it doesn't exist. That's your problem. But my sister's pretty tuned in with this. And we were talking about the gates of hell. And I said, this just came out of memory. I said, Piper, you realize that that's an offensive. We're supposed to be on the dang offense. She said, no, you know, turn the other cheek. And I said, Piper, that's not right. The Bible says the gates of hell will not prevail against us. She says, that's right. And I said, the gates are the defense of the devil. And the gates won't prevail against us when we come after, when we are on the offense. And she went, that got her. I think she hung up right after that. But we're supposed to be on the offense against this stuff. I pray against it, man. When I hear somebody say, well, you know, I saw grandma in my parlor, I'm like, Lord, save them. Because they could end up just like the lady you're talking about from Pennsylvania, getting lost, sucked in. And that's why it's so, oh my God, Justin, you know, this just comes to thought as we speak. It's sort of verbal processing. People, I think the root of everything is drugs. Could be, people say, well, it could be a sex addiction. No, that's your brain pumping your body full of dope when you get sexually excited. The attraction for the paranormal. You get an adrenal bump in your brain. It's a sexual addiction. I mean, it's a drug addiction, sexual addiction, addiction to this paranormal, always being involved, looking for ghosts and all that stuff. It's a drug addiction because you get a charge.
You feel good.
You're trying to satisfy that charge. That just came to mind. I just thought I'd share that with you.
Yeah, definitely. And when you look into the old occults and stuff, you know, all the occults and the secret societies and stuff like that, it's a lot of it is drinking of psychedelics and eating of mushrooms and things like that. And that's where all of them, without fail, have these divine revelations, just like this woman in Pennsylvania. Something manifests and tells them a secret.
Yeah, I'll share. Say, well, what's this new stuff? I hear these talk show hosts, they go off in the middle of, it's some kind of Aloxapala, some new thing that they're going like in a Native American sweat box. And
ayahuasca.
That's it. Tell me about that. What is that?
Ayahuasca. And what's funny is it's from South America, and it's a mixture of like 4 or 5 different plants. But the main plant is loaded with dimethyltryptamine, DMT, the active ingredient in all your psychotropics. But when you ingest just that plant alone, your body rejects it. It fights it like it's a foreign thing, like a disease or
if you
illness.
Eat it, you vomit.
Yeah. And so, but the Indians or the Native Americans down there found 2 or 3 other plants that they can put with it, and it stops your body from fighting it and allows you to take it in.
Well, what's the effect? What's the effect, Justin?
It is just like dropping acid. You take it and you feel heavy and you giggle like pot, but then you just go on vision journeys and you see all these hallucinogens and stuff. But without fail, everybody that takes it, everybody all over the world without fail. I mean, they've documented this. They've done experiments on it.
Yeah.
Without fail, they all have encounter with this thing they call the cosmic serpent. This huge serpent that glitters from head to toe speaks to them and reveals knowledge.
Wouldn't you know it'd be a dang snake?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you know it? Well, I don't want anything to do with that. What do you call ayahuasca?
Yeah, ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca.
Yeah.
I don't believe I want me none of that. I don't believe. But I've heard people talk about it. Some talk show host said that he went out and it sounded like he was in a sweat house and got on this ayahuasca stuff and saw the end of time and the beginning of the next time. And you're really playing outside the Baptist box with that stuff.
Yeah. I think it was given to them by fallen entities, because think about it. These were primitive people. How did they know to take they've got millions of plants down there in Amazon. How did they know to take those specific 2 or 3 in a combination? And you have to grind it. You have to boil it. You have to strain it. There's all these different things you got to do to it. How did they know all this stuff?
Well, I'll tell you, I think I have the answer. I think I have the
old traditions tell them. They say that the star people gave it to them.
But that's a lie. If you've read the book of Enoch, which a lot of Baptists are prohibited from reading, but I read it. One particular angel had the job to get people messed up, tell them about roots and herbs and how to mix them up and come over to our side.
Yeah.
One guy, I forget which one. They had some weird names. Aziza.
Bear quail or Sarah quail.
Yeah. Said, you girls mix this up and paint your one guy said, well, paint your face up and be sexy, honey. And the other one said, well, make you up some ayahuasca. And the other one, they were teaching them all how to build a knife that would, kill more people. And that's what their function was. They were just sent here to destroy God's
we was talking about the book of
creation.
Enoch, I always thought that was crazy. That goes perfectly in line with Scripture and just fills in blank spaces and dots I's and crosses T's, because
that's a good way to put that
paradigm. Without that paradigm, God looks like a genocidal maniac.
Yeah, go
they just
kill all those people up
kill
there.
them all.
Yeah,
no, it was the bloodline was corrupted by the fallen angels so bad that Noah was the only pure blood human left, and all the wisdom and technology they gave him, his creation.
Yeah, but them girls that his boys brought in the boat, though, I think one of them was dirty.
Yes, one of them had to have been.
One of them had to be dirty. One of them girls, she had the RH negative blood or something. My sister's worried. I've got RH negative blood. Does that mean I'm wrong? I said, actually, Piper, what does that stand for? She said, it's a rhesus gene. I said, so if you're RH negative, you are one of the few people that does not have any monkey gene. And she said, I said, you're better off than we are. She was all freaked out thinking she's going to hell because she had RH blood. But I said, no, I think you're cleaner than the rest of us because you don't have any monkey mixed up in you. Satan was the first amateur genetic engineer. All flesh was corrupted. I think he made the dang dinosaurs. I think the devil made ticks. I think the devil made fleas. Mosquitoes. I think he made yellow jackets. I think he made liberals. I think, just saying.
Yeah.
But back to our Bigfoot thing, Justin. Bottom line on this whole topic is I fear that people will accept it as just another creature of nature. This thing is bad news.
Yep.
And I will interject this, something I'm sure you've paid attention to. The more active CERN gets, the more bizarre the skies get. And God does tell us to look up, man. When you notice the world's sort of a little wanky, look up. That's a command. I mean, it's really bold. It's a bold command. We're not supposed to be walking around looking at our dang phones. We're supposed to, and when you look up, you'll see something. I'll guarantee you, if you look up enough, you'll see something.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Karen Wilkinson, she says, because she is an alien abductee survivor. She says she's been abducted since she was 6 years old. It wasn't until she got saved and rebuked them in the name of Jesus that they left her alone. But she tells her experiences. But one of the things she always says is, look up for him not for them.
Hey, that's a good slogan.
Yep.
Look up for him, not them.
Yep.
Hey, I like that.
And
Well,
the
Justin,
Genesis
you've got-
tells you that, the stars and the moon and all that stuff was put in the firmament for signs and for seasons.
Yeah.
So they're up there for a
not
reason.
astrology. Not astrology.
Yeah.
But
They don't
for
control
signs.
you.
Well, here recently, I think it was a couple of years ago, and we're way off topic off the Bigfoot, but maybe not so far. It said a lot of prophecies, many different prophets said that, and in the Bible as well, said when there's certain alignments in the sky and the stars are under her feet and that kind of thing, that all happened just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, 2016. The
Never
last time it
happened before?
happened was September 11th, 3 BC, which I believe that was the birth of Christ.
Yeah, because the calendars are off 3 or 4 years. Yeah. No kidding. That's interesting.
Yep.
That's the last time all that stuff lined up like that.
Yep. Yep, and the book of Revelation talks about it. I mean, I think that was astronomical allegory told for the birth of Jesus. That was the star or the conjunction that the wise men, the Magi, followed.
Yeah, the Magi followed it. Yeah, well, we're not off topic in my estimation of things, Justin, because I see things very black and white. I had a friend of mine who was a psychiatrist, and he saw me down in Knoxville one day, and I'd just gotten this truck, and he said, "Oh, you got a new truck?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I knew it'd be white." I said, "What, Doc?" He said, "Yeah, your other car's black, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Don't you see life that way? Black and white, good and bad, right and wrong?" I said, "Yeah, you got dang head doctor. I hate that booger." I hadn't seen him since, but he said, "Yeah, I knew. Yeah, of course it's white. That's the way you see life, right and wrong, black and white." And he's right. My Corvette was black. My truck's white. I just buy black and white cars. So, that's just the way I see things. He had me pegged, man. But this Bigfoot thing, Justin, it's unauthorized, and that's what makes it bad.
Do you have a podcast or small business? Do you want to expose that business or podcast to thousands of people each week for an entire year for less than one car payment?
Now you have my attention.
I'm looking for sponsors of this show. I know you have seen and heard the Kevlar Joe ads on the podcast and YouTube channel. I can do the same for your podcast or business each and every week. I promise you, you're not going to find a better advertisement value for your buck. My contact info can be found on my website, PrometheusLensPodcast.com, or reach out to me on social media. Let's talk, and let me show you how you can grow your brand effectively and cheaply. Yeah.
If God don't authorize it, it's just bad news. They're breaking the rules when you see one. When you see, I really believe that when you see one of those things, or you hear one of those things, or you encounter one of those things, you should extricate yourself from that situation immediately. That guy that was telling me on the ham radio to put out little gifts for him, I actually thought about putting some gifts down here at the water's edge, but sitting up here with my 270, waiting on him. Because that thing, it didn't like me and I didn't like him. We had an instant hatred for each other. And I'll tell you, that gets back to the supernatural side of this. I knew it hated me.
Genesis 3:15. I will put enmity between her seed and thy seed.
Yeah, 2 seed lines. How about the girl on the plane that says, "That guy's not real"? I think somebody let their eyes go a little reptilian, and she caught it. Now she's recanted now because she found out that, they probably called her and said, "You keep your mouth shut or we're going to kill you. Recant it now or we're going to kill you." And she, she did. But I saw that video. She was freaking terrified, man.
Yeah, she was.
And you can't fake that. She was like, "That guy ain't real." I mean, it was so 2 seed lines. Yep. I believe that. how they, the genetic engineering, satanic genetic engineering, he would have no problem by this time being able to scale down a 19-foot booger into a 6-foot guy.
Yep. Got better at blending in.
Yeah. Perfecting his genetic engineering. And you know, he's jealous of God. That's the whole thing. He's mad at God, jealous of God, wants to be God, and he wants creations of his own. But in my humble opinion, his creations are not good things. I think this thing very well could be. I just see them as bad news, man. They're the bad guy. They're the enemy. And if you, so like we were talking about, you see grandma at the foot of your bed, that ain't granny. Because the Bible says the dead know nothing.
Nothing. That's right. They know nothing.
And where's grandma? She went with Jesus? Not yet, she ain't. Grandma's dead. But when Jesus comes back, she pops up and goes, here we go. Now we're on. Yep. But right now, granny's dead. Oh, every funeral I've ever been to, I hear the preacher go, well, she's with Jesus now.
You're the guy that's like, that is awful theology.
Yeah, I'm real picky about what preacher I listen to because I know just enough about the Bible, and I'm certainly no scholar, but I know just enough about the Bible to have the discernment to pick out the BSers from the preachers. Can't you, as you scroll through YouTube, watch 5 minutes of a guy and go, nah, you're out.
Yeah, that's my spiritual gift, honestly, is discernment.
Well, that's the most valuable gift that God could give you, because that's the only one that could keep you. He could make you a good guitar player, but that won't keep you out of hell.
Yeah.
That's a great gift, Justin.
Yeah.
I hope you're thankful for that. That's a great gift, man.
Oh, I am. But my teenage years, I thought that little inner voice and gut feeling was something just trying to keep me from a good time. I had to find out for myself. I've gotten a little bit wiser. I've lived long enough to be a little wiser.
Well, you know, when I was 29 years old, I had the dumbest daddy in America. That was the dumbest SOB you ever saw when I was 29. And when I turned 30, boom, he's Albert freaking Einstein. He didn't change, but I did.
Yep.
He went from the dumbest son of a gun I ever knew to the smartest, most respected man I ever encountered, was my father. And I wish I'd had that wisdom when I was 16 or 17. I would have probably avoided some issues.
Yep. Well, Chris, thank you for coming out and talking with us, man. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
I have too, Justin.
And the sharing your experiences with us. And guys, if you enjoyed the episode, be sure to hit the like button, hit the share button. There's somebody out there that needs to hear this.
Needs to hear
just to be affirmed. So share it out with your friends and family. And till next time, torches high.